Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Top 5 series for Ryerson's alumni and friends. My name is Christian Mehta, and I am the AVP of Engagement at the university. And I'm delighted to be your moderator for this session. Before we begin, I want to pay my respects to the Indigenous peoples, elders, and ancestors who stewarded and cared for the nature and people who lived on the land where Ryerson is located today. At the university, we have made a deep and long-lasting commitment to truth and reconciliation, and I invite you to learn more about this work online and in person next time we can get together on campus, which I hope will be very, very soon. We know you've got a lot on the go, so this is just a 30-minute webinar. We'll dive in quickly, but before I introduce our presenter, Colleen Carney, I have just a few housekeeping tips to share. In about 20 minutes, Colleen will be taking your questions. If you have anything to ask Colleen, be sure to ask your question to Jennifer Hicks by typing in your question in the chat function so she can moderate the flow. Your cameras and mics are off, so sending your question to Jennifer directly is the best way to go. Second, if you're on social media, please use hashtag RUTop5. And finally, we are recording this session, so if you want to rewatch or share it with your friends and networks, please look for a message from us in your inbox in the next day or so. So now I want to introduce you to today's expert. Colleen Carney, hold on one second. Colleen Carney is one of Canada's leading experts in the treatments of insomnia, particularly in the context of co-occurring health issues. Currently, she is a professor and director of the Sleep and Depression Laboratory at Ryerson. She is also president of the Association for Behavioral and Cognitive Therapies, Insomnia and Other Sleep Disorders Special Interest Group. Dr. Carney was previously on faculty at Duke University's Medical Center, where she was a recipient of the prestigious National Sleep Foundation's Pickwick Fellowship. Her main research interests are how to best treat insomnia in the context of other mental health conditions and understanding the comorbid insomnias. As part of her clinical research trials, she and her students provide free cognitive behavioral therapy for those with insomnia and other conditions. She has numerous publications on the topic of cognitive vulnerability to insomnia and depression, and is a passionate advocate for improving treatment options for those with insomnia and other health problems. Dr. Carney, it's so great to have you here today. Thank you so much for being with us. It's over to you for the next 20 minutes.
Okay, well, thank you. Let me share my screen with you. Okay. I assume you'll tell me if you're not seeing this, but thank you for having me. This is pretty fun. I'm excited to see. This is a great series, and I've been tasked to give you 5 tips to sleeping well, which right now is a challenge, as I'm sure, and I'm glad to be here with alum. I know that some of my students who are taking a summer class in sleep in PSY 682 are here, so hi. It's good to see you because we've only seen each other online, and here's my face. Well, why don't we get started? I am Colleen Carney, and that was a very nice introduction, so I don't need to say anything else other than that, except to say that my students at the Sleep and Depression Lab here at Ryerson are pretty passionate about finding ways to treat insomnia briefly, cheaply, making sure that these solutions are available. And so I'm going to share a little bit about that at the end of the presentation. I also have my Twitter and Instagram up there because my daughter says it's very embarrassing how few followers I have. So I'm hoping somebody will follow me if I can get her off my back about that. Okay, well, why don't we just start with a big number here. So a lot of people have insomnia at any given time. And if you are on Twitter like I am, you're going to see all kinds of posts. Hashtag insomnia is trending quite frequently. And my students and I are quite interested in finding solutions for people who are suffering from insomnia. So I thought I would focus on that today. And I want to tell you that, I mean, I like to think I'm pretty good at what I do, but one thing I cannot do is I cannot get rid of a bad night's sleep for you. Because in the initial stages of having insomnia, having a bad night, virtually anything could cause it, and including good things and things that you have no idea what's causing them. So having a bad night's sleep is actually part of the human condition. So that's not actually where we're operating. Where we're operating is when that bad night turns into 1, 2, 3 dozens years of bad nights. And when insomnia becomes chronic, there are really only 3 causes for chronic insomnia. And that is that your biological clock is dysregulated in some way. You have low drive for deep sleep, or something called conditioned arousal has developed, which means that instead of my bed equals sleep, my bed equals wake. And when one of those 3 conditions, and in many cases all 3 happen, you're in trouble and you need a solution. And cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia addresses those 3 causes. So all of my tips are going to be informed by cognitive behavioral therapy. And I'm thinking, when I thought about these tips for you, I was really thinking about some of the unique challenges that you may be facing. So my tip number 1 is going to be about that clock, because I want you to work with your clock, not against it. Some people are sleeping a lot better with COVID, and that's because they're able to go to bed at a time that suits them and wake up at a time that suits them, physiologically speaking. We are clocks, and our biological clocks require daily resetting because it's actually longer than 24 hours. Our clocks have input into things like hormones, alertness, sleep, and they're essential. We know how important the clock is. When we have a little kid, we know that if we don't have regularity, that they are going to become emotionally dysregulated. They're going to have meltdowns. We're going to have trouble getting them to eat, to sleep, get up, all the things that we want them to do. And somehow we get in our head that we outgrow that, but we are actually all toddlers running around needing some regularity. So we do need to set the clock. If you don't have regular habits, then you are suffering from jet lag symptoms without ever traveling, because that's what jet lag is. It's a mismatch between the clock in your body and the clock local time. So if you have variability, you go to bed at like 9 p.m., 11 p.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 10, it's all over the place. It is the equivalent of traveling. So I'm going to ask you during COVID to set an alarm each morning. And I know that that's kind of crappy because you don't have to get up for something. So you don't have to set it for the time that you normally get up. You can just set it at the latest. It's kind of like a stop mechanism so that you're never going to sleep in too much. So that it's never going to go beyond a certain time. And all the other mornings you can wake up naturally as long as it's before that kind of latest time. And I want you to try to get light every day, which is really tricky, especially on this miserable day. And I cannot believe it was snowing earlier. But you need to get some light, because light is the primary way that you set that clock. If you can't get out, we are supposed to be able to get out to exercise. Then I think that would be a reasonable thing to do, to go for a walk around the block to get light exposure. If you're able. If you're not able, for whatever reason, then you're going to have to mimic it with lots of lights on during the day. And we do have clocks in our gut, so eating meals around the same time would also be helpful. Rule number 2 is a weird one. You've heard this one before. Don't stay in bed when you can't sleep. The reason why is that part of insomnia results in you spending some time in bed awake. That's what insomnia is, right? So it's not your fault. But if you spend copious amounts of time awake, or planning, or worrying, or whatever it is that you're doing awake, then your bed becomes the place that you don't sleep. And there's an association that happens it's outside of your awareness, so that you could be ready for bed, you get into bed, and then boom, a switch goes off and you are wide awake. If you feel that switch, ready for bed, get into bed, not ready for bed. You have something called conditioned arousal. Certainly, if you are accustomed to doing a lot of wakeful activities in bed, this can predispose you for this. So if you are somebody that always reads when they get into bed, always watches TV, it won't necessarily cause an insomnia, but it does leave you vulnerable. And once you have insomnia, then those activities should stop. Anything that you do when you're awake should happen outside of the bed. The accidental pairing of the bed is called conditioned arousal, and this is actually how insomnia is the primary way that an insomnia, couple of bad nights, becomes a chronic insomnia. And so if you can't fall asleep in a reasonable amount of time, it's not going to happen for you right away. So get up and wait until you're sleepy and then go back to bed. Tip number 3, it's going to sound very strange, but I'm thinking about this time and how a lot of us are isolated. I want you to stay social. Social animals that are deprived of interaction sleep worse, but they also show signs that are very similar to being depressed. And we're the same. So we want to be active, but we want to maintain some social activity. Boredom is a common thing that happens when we're not social. And sometimes it is the cause for how we feel fatigued, and it may be confused with fatigue. And the thing about fatigue that's funny is we always say, well, don't overdo it, otherwise you're going to get tired. But you also should never underdo it, because it actually makes you more tired, right? You're probably spending a lot more time on the couch. Do you feel energized at the end of all the couch surfing, or do you feel sluggish? That's going to give you the answer that you need for why you have to be a little bit active. Socializing, it builds up a drive for deep sleep. Activities do. Socializing, not in and of itself, but socializing, being active, builds up sleep drive. But it also keeps us regular. So it's very unusual for us to say, hey, why don't you come over at 10 o'clock tomorrow night? We have to do this when it's done, of course. And let's eat a box of cookies and cheese string. Now, on a regular Saturday night, you may do that, but you don't want somebody else to know that. So you're going to invite them over at a conventional time when you would normally eat with conventional food. So socializing tends to get rid of some of our less healthy habits. Tip 4 is about using healthy sleep or fatigue management rather. I mean, I think a lot of us do things that are quick fixes for fatigue, things like drinking coffee, which are just, of course, going to make us tired later. And we do a lot of resting. But the fact of the matter is a lot of resting is going to increase fatigue. So here are some solutions that are that give you better results. One is to get rid of one of the common culprits of fatigue, which is dehydration. So make sure that you're drinking frequently throughout the day water. And certainly keeping healthy snacks, 3 regularly timed meals is going to help with the clock. But ideally, you want to eat foods that are not going to spike blood sugar and make it plummet, which is going to make you tired. Light, daylight specifically, I'm like pointing outside when there's not an ounce of daylight out there, it's so gray, but normally daylight actually helps us with alertness because of the blue light that is emitted from the sun. So you definitely want to use daylight exposure during the day to help you with alertness and to combat fatigue. But if you can't because of isolating, then make sure you're going to mimic it with lots of inside lighting. And moving a little gives you a little energy. So definitely you have to move in order to get it. Move too much and you will overdo it, but not moving enough is going to make you very tired. And here's my last one. I've given you a list of what I think is kind of difficult health behaviors that I'm asking you to do. And especially given the challenges that we're facing. So I only want you to do what you can from this list. I don't want you to be perfectionistic during this time. I'm seeing many posts on Twitter of people sharing, they're trying to balance doing online schooling for their kids and working and caregiving and trying to do everything that we have to do for this isolation period. So certainly managing stress, but also just managing your expectations. Many people right now are saying, well, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, and I shouldn't be gaining weight. Don't shit all over yourself. Give yourself a break during this time because there's lots of stress. It's a pandemic. So don't forget to engage in relaxation, meditation, wind downs, hobbies, things that fill you up, and don't put too many demands on yourself. Well, I'm done with my tips, but I want to show you how this fits in with our research right now with just one slide here. We have some very generous funding from the William Rosenberg Foundation, Family Foundation. And I told you this is the Sleep and Depression Lab. And I want to show you how my tips map onto what we're doing. So whether or not somebody has depression and it leads to sleep disruption, or the sleep disruption leads to depression, there's a very tight link here. So I want you to imagine a situation where somebody's not depressed and they just have some sleep disruption. One of the things that many people do in response to feeling their sleep going off the rails is they do less. They end up spending less time outside, they're less social, they spend more time in bed, trying to sleep in the morning, trying to nap, going to bed a little bit earlier. And all of these habits, which are understandable habits under normal circumstances, have the potential to give you conditioned arousal, to decrease your deep sleep drive, and to make your clock less regular. So all of them predispose you to chronic insomnia. And once you have chronic insomnia, you have a fourfold risk to developing depression. Put another way, 25% of people who have chronic insomnia within that year will develop depression. So I want to show you what we've done over the last couple of years. We have been giving people 4 sessions of cognitive behavior therapy for insomnia. This is not a depression treatment, it is only insomnia. And we are seeing amazing recovery from depression. So not only are they recovering from sleep, that's a for sure, but they are recovering from depression. And what's happening is that this is a study we did for the NIH, so National Institute of Health. The rate of recovery was over 1/3. By the way, in an antidepressant trial, about 1/3 of people recover from depression. That's about the rate we can get out of medication. You can see in CIHR, a study that we did that finished last year, our rate was a lot higher. That might be a little artificial because of the measure we used. But you can see that it's 1/3 also in the William Rosenberg pilot study that we've been doing. That means that people are recovering the same as with an antidepressant by just getting 4 sessions of an insomnia treatment. And we've been looking to see why. And these are the 2 reasons why people are recovering. They're spending less time in bed as a result of the treatment, and they're getting up a little bit earlier. Now, we don't know exactly why that's leading to it, but we are investigating it right now with this funding. And we're finding that people seem to be exposed to greater amounts of light by getting up earlier and by spending more time out of bed. And they seem to be doing more, not necessarily exercise, but there's greater mobility, greater activity levels. And so these are 2 things that you can have control over during COVID by trying to stay active to the extent that you can, trying to increase your light. And so those were the 2 things that I tried to put into your tips. So I want to just give a shout out. Here we are. This is our headquarters here at Ryerson. I just want to give a shout out to my superhero students and all of our funding. I want to encourage you, right now the social is on, and one of our illustrious alums, Marcy, actually hosts that show. But it's on again at 2, and I will be talking about this very topic today on CTV2 on the social. So please feel free to tune in. And don't forget, so that I can get my daughter to get off my back, to follow me on one of those sources. And I would love to hear some of your questions. I'm sure you've got lots. I'm going to stop sharing right now, actually, just so that.
Colleen, that was great, and so much important and useful information there. Okay, there's a lot of chat in the chat, so and questions for you. So we're just going to dive in.
Mm-hmm.
A few people have asked this question, and so it's the first one we're going to launch into. I have struggled. This one is by Janet. I have struggled with restless leg syndrome for years, and I have not found anything that works. I am often not able to sleep as a result of it. It wakes me up in the middle of the night and keeps me up for hours. Is there anything that Janet and others who are facing this can do to help with that?
Yeah, I mean, so restless leg syndrome is a neurologic condition, so it's different than insomnia. But one of the side effects of that condition could be that you could then have difficulty sleeping, because it is. I actually have restless leg syndrome, so I am very aware. And so the treatment of choice are drugs that work on the dopamine system, and some people have difficulty tolerating them. They tend to be fairly effective for people, but not all people. So Janet may be somebody who's tried them and has not had success. I can tell you one thing, and is if you're having this problem and insomnia, that some of the tips that I gave and cognitive behavior therapy will help with the insomnia part. I can't get rid of the restless legs, because I would love to get rid of them for myself too. So that really is a discussion for your neurologist or family doctor. And if you've only seen your family doctor, then I think a sleep specialist is the way to go, Janet. But some of the cognitive behavior therapy tips about leaving the bedroom and all those sorts of things, they would be helpful too.
Great. This one's from David. His 20-year-old daughter does all her schoolwork in bed. How does he encourage her to break that habit? She also happens to suffer from insomnia.
Okay, my first answer was going to be, leave her alone, David. But but if she suffers from insomnia, then good job, David. And David, you might be very interested in a new app that just came out that I developed for CHR. It's free, and it is for young adults up to the ages of 25, and it's dozeapp.ca. It's free, so it's called Doze. And I would encourage her to use something like that, because it will help with her insomnia, but it is completely self-directed. So if she wants to work on another goal to improve her sleep, then she may be more willing to do something like that rather than something like the schoolwork. But as her sleep gets better, or if it doesn't get better, and that's the one thing that the app is giving her feedback on, sometimes it's easier to listen to an app than a dad. Then she may change her mind and try, well, I'm going to decrease a little bit of that work. So I would encourage you to get her to use that app, because it's very difficult to see the connection between doing something awake in bed and training yourself to be awake in bed, because that wasn't the initial cause of it. So to get rid of it seems like, well, why would I do that? So I think it's difficult. And so leave it to the professionals, and get her to use that free app. If it doesn't work, that I do have a book coming out, but that you have to pay for that one. So try and use the app first, because it's free.
Maybe we can do an associated webinar with the book.
Yeah.
This one is from Maggie, and I think this is something that a lot of people have heard in the past and have kind of made it a habit too, is around reading in bed. Is it a good idea? Does it help you fall asleep? Is it meant to really keep you up? What's your take on reading in bed as a way to perhaps curb insomnia, or perhaps anchor it a bit further?
Yeah. Well, I definitely think it's not the way to help insomnia, because it would make it worse, right? So we don't want to do that. But is it bad in of itself? No, it's not bad in of itself. And many people read or watch television. I'm somebody who likes to watch half an hour before I go to sleep. If I have any problem with insomnia, that habit does go right away, though, because it is a wakeful activity in bed. You should be ready for bed by the time you get into it. And I think that would be my best advice. So reading is fantastic. Watching TV, fantastic. These are things that are associated with sleepiness, but they should probably be done outside of the bed. But is it a big deal to do it if you don't have insomnia? Absolutely not. So if that's part of your wind down and you enjoy that, then go ahead and do that. If you're suffering from insomnia, then just move that very good activity just out of the bed for now.
Terrific. This one is from Carly. What about oversleeping? Carly doesn't suffer from insomnia, but has found that the same amount of sleep before COVID is now not feeling sufficient. Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah. So first of all, Carly, what I want to know is the amount that you're getting now during COVID, does it feel more restorative? Do you feel better? If you do, the interesting news is that you are a longer sleeper than you thought. And I think that's what the whole 8-hour myth, that's the unfortunate thing about the 8-hour myth, is that if I told everyone on this webinar, you have to sleep for 8 hours, some of you would develop insomnia or it'd make your insomnia worse. Some of you, that wouldn't be enough. I'm actually an 8.5-hour sleeper. So I would be sleep deprived under that circumstance. So it just may be that that's your sleep need. If you are just sleeping more because you're not setting an alarm and you feel groggy, I wouldn't take it as, some people think, well, that's when I woke up naturally. There's many reasons why we wake up naturally. And we often wake up in the morning and then just close our eyes. So it's not that you should necessarily get up at a certain time or not. It's whether or not when you're getting up at that time, you feel good during the day. So I'm telling you that if you're feeling good, Carly, during the day, then take advantage of it right now and go ahead and do it. And if you can, after COVID, if you can increase your time in bed by moving some of perhaps your morning routine to the evening, so that you can stay in bed a bit longer, then you actually might feel healthier coming out of COVID, but having realized that you're a longer sleeper than you thought.
Wow, that's enlightening. I didn't realize that some people could need to sleep much longer than the recommendation. Here's a question from Doreen. How do you suggest coping with menopause and its effect on sleep?
Well, menopause, what's the really interesting thing is, unless we're talking about hot flashes, in which case there's two things we should do for hot flashes. One is to try and find a way to manage them, which for many women is a lot of trial and error, frankly. But the other thing that you need to think about is the getting out of bed when you can't sleep. So if you woke up because of a hot flash, it's better to go out into the other room until you're ready to sleep again and you feel sleepy, and then go back in. Menopause does not actually cause you to sleep poorly. There's not a discrete start of menopause, and people assume because of the hot flashes that, oh, well, this is what's wrecking my sleep. And unfortunately, the thing that we're not controlling for is aging. And so, as somebody who is in that age group right now, as I'm aging, am I still as physically active? How do I have a few more medical issues or ailments, or am I taking medication? The other thing we have to remember is that menopause is much more related to sleep apnea than it is insomnia. So are you sleeping poorly because you have sleep apnea and you don't know it? Insomnia is a very annoying, upsetting condition, but it's not going to kill you. Apnea will. So apnea is one of those things that we want to make sure that we get evaluated for.
Okay, we have 30 seconds. Here's the last question.
Okay.
How late is too late to do moderate cardio exercise before bed?
You know what? Anybody who says they have an answer for that for you doesn't know what they're talking about. We have so much research that says you can do cardio right before bed, and the effect that it has on your body temperature would actually be positive. We have just as much research showing that it would increase arousal and prevent you from falling asleep. So we really don't know what to say. I think that I know I'm not somebody who can do vigorous exercise before bed. I know that I just sort of vibrate in bed after I've done that. So I'm going to move it into the early evening at the latest. But that's something that's more trial and error for somebody. So when somebody focuses on this exercise situation and says they have an answer for you, that it's just not true. We just have mixed evidence all over the place.
Well, we've run out of time. It's now 1:30, and I want to thank you, Dr. Carney, for hopping onto our top five webinar series. It's really great to have you here.
Fun.
Uh,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, it looks like we have about 10 more questions, so we likely need to have you back.
Okay, no problem.
And I want to thank all of you who have joined us for this webinar. Please do tune in for another round of webinars we have coming up over the next few days and weeks. We look forward to supporting you in this time and for us to be able to share insights and thoughts on what's great happening at Ryerson and beyond, things that matter to you. We also want to thank Jill Gottlieb and the William Rosenberg Family Foundation for your support of Ryerson and the work that Dr. Carney and her colleagues are doing in the sleep and depression lab at Ryerson. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you again soon.